I hate this window. Goodness sake, why can't people just make it so that the windows that they make are just normal? Like, why have they always got to be abnormal? It's just obnoxious. How does Trovo still exist? Like, it's a bit confusing to me. It doesn't seem to get much activity on it, but it's still around. Which is not to say that it shouldn't exist, but it certainly is to say that I don't know how it's been around for this long. I don't know how it's stuck around. This is cool. Okay, so I was going to say that there was this... things were interesting. So it was my birthday very recently, the other day on the 12th, and I didn't even realize it, but apparently I got yet another, inadvertent birthday gift, clearly, and that was to do with the fact that they had OBS like pushed some sort of a major update, and it's like, okay, that's cool. And this update, apparently they've gotten like multi-track, like, I don't know, they've just got loads of stuff that they put in that I've been waiting on and whatnot. So we're going to see how things are with this. I just tried this hybrid MP4 thing that they're doing now. So hopefully it won't like totally ruin any of my recordings. If not, then I'll have to figure out how to salvage them. But yeah, definitely wanted to put something in there, because I always have had this idea since like straight up like when I first started doing funny YouTube stuff, when I was just recording stupid YouTube playthroughs like in my closet on the laptop, like that type of deal. Like I first started doing that in light of well, regardless, it was like years and years ago, but like it's just funny because I was always thinking of this idea of having like the ability to just like press a button and it's just like boop, yeah, there we go. I clipped that bit just to make it easier for me later on in editing. And I was like, oh man, I wish I really had that kind of a feature where I could just like mark it, and then it's like, oh yeah, now like Elgato is figuring out how to integrate it in with this new OBS update. And I want to see if I can end up doing multi-track video encoding on, just one stupid computer, because that would be great, just to be able to have like, I don't care if it's in like an MKV still, because I'm trying out the hybrid MP4, but like I've normally done MKV because it's very fault tolerant, but I don't know, I just wanted to try it out. Imagine my power goes out, then it'll be Jova. Just kidding, I can save that with AVI Demux. So I suppose, why would you do that? I'm kind of sick of having a stupid audio interface that I have to like plug into. I'm very tempted of just like figuring out some sort of weird jerry rig that I could do to get it Bluetooth, because it'd be so nice just to be able to walk off with my headphones on. Anyhow, what was I going to talk about today? So, I mean, I suppose I didn't really, did I? Yeah. Dr. Disrespect rizzed a minor. Bruh. My brain. So yeah, I unprivated my Twitter, couple of days ago. Oh, maybe I should have, cause I put in this, the eggy. I put in that for the topic, but maybe I should have but not the topic, the meme of the day. Maybe I should have saved that one for later, because I could have totally done a really funny one that would be funny in context. Regardless, so I unprivated my Twitter. I had it privated for a while because I was dealing with some extraneous issues. But now I'm like, I need to figure out how to just deal with the fact that people who don't like me are gonna like freak out about things, and they're going to try to come at me with it. So it's like, yeah, well, it's not like that's just the way things are. All right. Like I blue screened earlier, and I don't know if it was because of the OBS. I don't know, but I do like the update so far. So yeah, I unprivated the Twitter, and so if you want to look on my Twitter and see me melting my brain constantly, I think it's going to be healthy for me to just try to figure out how to stay off it, or stay out of the, at least the stay out of the toxicality of it all, because it really is important to not take things so seriously when people are just people are doing the things that they do. All right, like it's just a good idea to stay aware of that. So yeah, so on the docket for today, I've got so I think I had opened up the previous episode a couple of days previous with just talking about sexuality really doesn't really matter all that much. Maybe I'm not being like the greatest, just having the stream of consciousness go. I'll ease into it hopefully. But the stream of consciousness was going in the direction of sexuality doesn't really matter all that much in the grand scheme of things. Like it's not something that you should be basing your entire identity off of. It's just one of those extraneous things that it just is what it is, and if someone's going to judge you for it, then that's their issue. And if anybody's judging you for something that you haven't got actually a moral problem with, then you've just got to leave it be. Let it be their issue that they are making it an issue. Like, you don't have to seek for the support of strangers and whatnot, but it's not exactly like this is entirely the reason, the direction that this is going. So I don't know. We may as well just hop right into it. It's not like there's much of a purpose to wait around for. There's nothing else. Nothing else that's really trying. So this is an interesting thread, and so yeah, just once again another Twitter thread to be looking at. Someone's funny ideological comic strip, whatever. I kind of appreciate the what do you call it? The classification of clapter rather than laughter. It's clapter, where it's like, yeah, that was so funny. Like, I'm going to clap and I'm not laughing. I'm clapping. Haha. Clap, clap. Like, it's just like, are we here to have comedy or activism? Like what is the thing we're going to deal with here? But it's not really like this applies to this. This is just somebody like, it's more of a drama, but it's a preachy drama where it's like, you need to feel bad for me, man. And how obviously that can sound a little bit callous, so I may as well just get into it. So I suppose more specifically on the topic of conversion therapy in particular, I've never really, so the way that I would see it is probably since like high school, when I'd first been introduced to the topic, is ending up discussing this type of a topic when it comes up, and my view of it's always sort of been like, okay, what does it involve? What about the conversion therapy is wrong? Well, parents have a child, and that child has become alphabet, has become inducted to the alphabet mafia, and so they say, well, we don't want you to be part of that gang or whatever. So they take them, and it's like, okay, what do they do with them? Do they sit them down and say, hey, we're going to have an intervention here. We think that this is not going to be quite good for you to get involved with this crowd. Or I don't need to keep up that joke, obviously, but we don't want you to get involved with this type of behavior. We don't think that this behavior is something that you should be encouraging in yourself, or whatever the idea is, where it's just like, well, if it's based off of a religious view, as often it is, where, well, we believe due to natural law sort of philosophy and ideas that that sexuality is, sort of the thing that your brain and body and whatnot does, but that when it comes to actually what you involve yourself in sexually, then it's very important to factor in the fact that there is an intrinsic design, and that design is required to I don't know, the natural law being that the purpose of sex is to reproduce, and if you're not going to reproduce from it, then why are you having it? It's funny, like, I think some of there was like a meme that I saw, like someone like on TikTok, where it was supposed to be like just a joke about it, which it was like a child was talking to their parents, and their parents had indicated something about I don't know, just the fact that they had recreational sex, which is like, perfectly normal between married couples, and the younger, I don't know if it was like supposed to be a child. Well, the idea was that it was this sort of cartoonish, like Stewie Griffin. Yes. How does it, Brian? Yeah, but like it's like sort of the child was just had responded to that, was like, you mean to tell me that you have sex without the actual purpose thereof, you heathen, or something like that. So it just kind of reminds me of that a little bit, where when I was younger, I was kind of knee-jerking into sort of the anti-contraception mode, where I was probably about like 13 to 15 or something like that, and I was speaking with my parents, and I was just like, well, yeah, contraception is like, it's normal, it's a way for like a couple to be able to show love to each other, as well as to create children and whatnot, to actually reproduce. And I was just like, I don't know, natural law there just kind of stipulates that it's just funny to think that as a very, very young person, that I was just like, no, you're not conservative enough about this. It's funny, but honestly, like, when it comes to now, it's just like, well, yeah, obviously, of course, I believe in contraception, but that's a tangent in and of itself. But yeah, when it comes to conversion therapy, I think my view has always been that, well, it's not so much that the act inherently of itself of saying, well, you think that this is your sexuality, let's actually work to talk and discuss this, and to see if we can mitigate that due to the consequences thereof, as in a religious aspect, being seen as counter to the religion in this case. If it's so much as just discussing that, then I don't see anything that is abusive in that. There's nothing abusive about talking about your sexuality. People do it all the time, and especially not. There's nothing, I think, abusive about discussing your sexuality, especially where relevant with a therapist. There's really nothing wrong with that. Where it ends up being wrong is when there is actually a coercive sort of a situation where it's actually unsafe, where there is a, as this thing would actually suggest that there is actually domestic abuse involved, as whatever it may be. like once it actually becomes abusive is when I have an issue, and that's not because it's just, I think it's a general idea with people that when it comes to, and this is the difference between justice and social justice, is that one means justice and the other means not justice. Okay, we're gonna make up like new terms for things. I mean, I don't know. It's the term. It's not like the term is new. I don't know. It might be as old as I am. So I just recently turned 23. Happy birthday to me, and I got a OBS update and a couple of things additional to that. I tend to have some pretty nice things arrive on my birthday. It's pretty nice. But regardless, this sort of idea that there's this special amount of what's the word? Sort of a special thought process that we should be engaging with when it comes to alphabet people, or yes, this is just how bored I am of this aspect of the discourse, this bloody stupid idea. But just this sort of thought that that people have got, where it's like, well, when it comes to someone I feel really bad for, because they've been put upon in one way or another, that they've been victimized in one way or another, that we have to, totally slam the pendulum in the opposite direction as hard and fast as we possibly can. Like that sort of an idea, I think, because we feel really bad for this particular group of people because they've been put upon by other interest groups previously, that they've been victimized or whatever. And that's the funny thing, is that that's how they justify it, but there's always an injustice somewhere. And like they will pick and choose which injustices they actually believe to be a concern, which actually is more concerning to me than really a lot of the injustices that they attempt to shed light on and prioritize and bring light to, because it really a lot of the time it really doesn't matter so much like what the sort of priority is in any like true sense. That's just like not, it's really just not that big of a deal most of the time. But I don't know, everybody's got their priorities, I suppose. Like, it's rough to, oh crap, I need to stop mucking about with OBS and just leave it alone. But yeah, it's just sort of interesting where, because these people, you can say, have been victimized previously, that we're going to we feel really bad for these people, and we feel bad for them because they're victimized, and so therefore we're going to shove down some kind of a policy that puts them up on this pedestal because that's what we think of them. We want to worship them. And then other people are like, wait, well, I don't really want to worship them. I just want to treat them as equals. They're like, well, that's not enough. You have to worship them. And it's like, can we not mainstream egotism and delusion and delusional egotism? Like, this is just not healthy. It's not conducive towards a healthy society. It never has been. So yeah, in that sort of a context, it's like, it's like people will say like trans rights are human rights, and it's just like, well, you're the one who's like boxing them into another thing where it's like, well, trans people deserve like special protections. It's like, well, no, they don't deserve special protections because they're not special. Like, everybody individually is special, but if you're a stranger to me, then you're not really special to me. So the entire idea is that we just want to put you into the class of American, effectively, and so that, well, you're an American, and you're a citizen, you get these you've got a government that protects these rights. I always like to differentiate between you get these rights if you're a citizen versus you get a government that protects those rights, because it's not the government that grants the rights. Well, it's not the government that that creates and gives the rights. It's the government that protects the rights. And so it's just like, well, they didn't create them. They were there before. The government didn't create the right for women to vote. They already had that right. They just decided one day to respect it, right? Like, that's kind of the big difference here. So it's like, I don't think that anybody who has, like, it's all contextual, because I just like to put it all into a higher box, a bigger box, where it's just like, well, I was victimized because of this particular thing that I went through, or this particular way that makes me different than people, that made people not really appreciate me so much. It's just like, all right, you know, let's look at the victimization, and let's just fix that issue as it stands, because of the principles thereof, and not because of the what do you call it, the person who is the victim in that case. It's like they're a victim in that case because they were victimized, not because they are who they are. It's like, that type of mentality makes it seem as though and it actually does play this psychological trick on people that makes it like, well, because I am who I am, that means that I am victimized. And it's like, bro, does that sound empowering to you? That's not empowering. It's like, I could say, well, I'm autistic. Everything in my life that has happened to me that is negative, that has been attributed or that I've been subjected to, is attributable to the fact that they don't like my autism. They don't like my tism-y nature. Like, it's like, I could say that, but then what am I telling myself, and what am I telling other people by actually believing that? You know, it's not a healthy mentality to say to somebody that you are what's the word, that you don't think you're capable of like, what's the word, like, not exactly capable, but I don't know exactly what I'm getting at, but you know, there's just sort of that that mentality there, where it's like I think I don't think I actually talked about it on stream, because I was considering like doing a video on it, like either a TikTok short or something like that, where I was going to opine on it. But there was someone in my state who ended up getting murdered, where, you know, but due to the fact that this person was trans, they said that this person being trans was the reason that they were killed, and they were killed in a particular due to the fact that there was a law in place that designated certain things about that effectively said that the human species is sexually dimorphic, and that there are some spaces that are female only, and some spaces there's a male version and there's a female version of that space. And so if a male goes into the female version, they should be castigated and potentially charged, especially if that's something like a changing room. It's like, that absolutely makes perfect sense, that women, we have those in place in order to protect women from men who believe that, you know, men who want to take advantage and want to victimize women and younger girls and whatnot. Like, I don't think there's a single problem with that. But because that law exists, that means that this person got killed, because it's like a demonization type of a thing. And it's just like, well, no, this is just common sense. Like, I don't understand where people get off with that. But a lot of it was just because they were completely ignorant of the situation in particular, because when you actually looked into the case, it was discovered that this person was known for carrying cash on them at practically at all times, which obviously puts you at risk for being robbed. If somebody actually knows that you've got money on you, then they might actually target you, rather than if you don't have anything of value on you, then they're not going to target you because there's nothing to squeeze from you. And that individual was saying, well, I want to actually purchase a gun, a weapon, which obviously I'm like, hey, good on you. But rather than actually going to a safe, appropriate situation to do that, where you're going to a dealer and you're saying, well, yeah, these are my mental, here's my background check, here's my everything, which is normally what the left is all about, is saying, well, you got to have these universal background checks, and you got to have these and all of this crap. That's normally what they're saying about that. But in this particular case, it was just like, this person was actually making what you would wish to be an illegal gun sale. So this is interesting. Like, where does that factor into the this entire situation? Like the equation is not balanced at this point, because you're not all you see is the agenda. This is a law that I don't like, and the entire basis on why I don't like this law is because my principle that overrides the principles behind this law is that trans people good, and you should just like bow down and worship them, because if you don't, you're a bigot. But like, you know, that's just sort of the principle that you operate on, and therefore the immediate reaction to it is we don't actually wait for the evidence. We don't actually wait for anything. We immediately claim that the entire reason that this occurrence has occurred is because you know this law caused people to hate transgender people more, which means that they were just like, well, there's a trans person, let's go kill her and bury her in the desert. But this individual was actually going to this situation knowing full well that they were going into a situation without any weapons, and they were going to purchase weapons from somebody who had weapons, and they were going to purchase the said weapons with cash. Now, if this sounds a little bit stupid to you, then you may be intelligent. This is not something that anybody people who know better are not going to do that. And people, like, it's like, you understand, like, you are purchasing a weapon, so that means you know that the people who you are buying from have weapons, and you are going to purchase with cash, which means that you have it on your person, and if they use those weapons against you, they can just take it however they want. So, like, you don't have a weapon going into this situation. If you're going to purchase weapons from somebody, you actually should probably come armed. But this person didn't have any weapons. That's why they were going to purchase weapons, so they came unarmed anyway. It's like you brought a nothing to a gunfight. What were you thinking? And not only that, a gunfight that was in the middle of the desert. Well, I don't actually recall if they actually had drug them out there, or done whatever the situation was. But it's like you're gonna have people be taking the death of this individual and pinning this on the entire rest of society in general, or the politicians in particular, when, like, actually the entire reason that this happened was because this person made an unwise and unsafe decision and did not ensure that they were going to keep themselves safe. That is the entire predicament here. And obviously that's not to say that is that they are the guilty party in that situation. So, well, yes, obviously the murderers are the people who are guilty. So let's condemn and prosecute the murderers. I've absolutely no issue with saying that. But when it comes to what is intelligent for you to do, that is not something that is actually conducive towards your survival. And if you want to survive, then obviously you ought to not behave in that way. This sort of idea that it's like, well, if you pack your wallet full of cash and then wave it above your head as you drive around in, you know, in like the inner city where you know the crime rate is high, like, I mean, you may not literally have been asking for it, but clearly this is not something you should do if you want to minimize your chances of being accosted and having your life put in danger and having your possessions stolen. So the entire point with that case is I'm saying that nobody is within their rights to kill somebody who is clearly unarmed and is not actually doing anything to I shouldn't say provoke, because that's not a good standard, but the standard of course being aggress. You want, it's like if I'm just standing there, you can't just like walk up to me and point a gun to my head and start threatening my life. If I start walking up to you and aggressing you, then that's the only case where you have the rights to use violence against me, because that violence is obviously self-defense. So that there's clearly that's the difference between killing and murder, is that murder is unjustified killing, and killing is just the act of taking another life. I think in many cases, taking another life, or at least nullifying a threat. Sometimes nullifying a threat requires the taking of a life. Nobody prefers to take a life, but it's just sometimes what you have got to do is, in order to save an innocent party, whether that innocent party be yourself or somebody else, in order to save an innocent party, that you must actually carry out that attack, not attack. What am I saying? You must be able to match the level of force with the level of force that is being used against you. So yeah, that's basically enough. If this goes for anybody, and obviously this doesn't even make headline news if this person wasn't trans, because then that wouldn't actually fit into our agenda, and then we actually have to find something else. You never hear about it when it's not a quote-unquote minority. You never hear about it when it's not one of these protected classes. You never end up hearing about it. It's just like, well, no, nobody's making what do you call them? These preludes. I don't know. Nobody's preaching and ranting and raving about Mormons getting killed by the Mexican cartel in Mexico. Like, it's like people aren't ranting and raving about that. Or if it weren't for the fact that it's just like, come on. People can make reasonable critique of an in-group without that also meaning that you are. What's the quote? Let me never fall into the vulgar mistake of thinking that I am being persecuted when I am contradicted. That's what I'm getting at. Point being, if somebody murders somebody else, I don't think that there should be any additional. I think it does help law enforcement, obviously, to understand what the motivation for the crime was. And so if the motivation for the crime was that, well, that person was part of an out group, and I don't like that group for whatever reason, then it pays to stay aware of what the motivation is, so that they can actually end up profiling. And I'm actually a big supporter of profiling, in the sense that, well, we actually need to make sure that we know what type of a person is willing to kill other people, to murder other people. Because I think really, if you test anybody who isn't like a hardcore pacifist, that everybody is eventually willing to kill somebody in order to protect. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But obviously, like murder, it's like, well, we need to be able to put together like, who murders people. But there shouldn't necessarily be any special difference between somebody who murders somebody for like a racial reason, or a bigoted reason of really any kind, or simply over a disagreement over, I don't know, road rage incident or something like that. It's just like, well, people who murder people should be punished, and we should allow law enforcement to actually ensure that that punishment can actually be doled out, and that we can actually cease I suppose the existence of those threats. It's like, yeah, that seems perfectly rational to me. and so it doesn't matter. I don't think there should be necessarily a distinction for hate crimes, because it's like, well, if you murder somebody, then that's a crime in and of itself enough, right? Like, why should it be any more special, the reason that you did it? Like, I don't really see that. It's like, it does deserve special attention in the case that, well, what motivated this threat, and how do we ensure that we keep an eye on people who may have the same motivation so we can prevent something like this from happening in the future? There's a difference between that and saying, well, it's actually worse and we're going to punish you more if you did it for this reason versus this reason. It's like, obviously people deserve different consequences based off of the nature of the crimes that they've committed, but I just don't think that there's much productive there's not much to be gained from categorizing crimes in this way. And so in that same sort of a sense, which is like, well, it doesn't matter that you're gay, it matters that you're a victim. And you are not a victim because you're gay, you're a victim because someone victimized you. Like, that is the entire logical track that I'm going on. So it's just like, well, I don't really care so much that somebody doesn't want you to be gay, especially if that's a family member who's saying, well, let's see if we can do something about this, because in my view, religiously speaking, that is not what's good for you. Which, it's one thing for a stranger to try to impose their will and their religion on you, because obviously that is theocratic in nature. But it's an entire thing. It's acceptable, I believe, for parents who, have a child, and that child really does not have the ability to decide things for themselves, because they don't have the ability to actually make proper risk assessments until they reach a certain age. They're not physically capable of that. Your amygdala is kind of in control until you hit a certain age. You have to actually have the rational centers in your brain to be able to where was I going to be able to respond to something like that rationally. Hello, Notorious Rooster. Cock-a-doodle-doo. So yeah, that's basically my entire idea with this, where it's just like, well, I don't really care about the conversion therapy sense of it. I care about the abuse sense of it. Like, if you sit down and talk with somebody, there's nothing abusive about that. If they start getting up in your face and shouting at you, then there's probably a little bit, that would actually legally constitute assault in many cases. Not battery, but assault. If you get up in someone's face and start shouting, then there's an intimidation factor with that, and that's actually a crime depending on the situation. My eye has been twitching like crazy this last couple days, and I don't know what is wrong with it. But it sort of along those lines, if you sit down and talk with somebody calmly, rationally, and just express that this is what I think would be healthier for you to do, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But if you say, okay, we're going to send you to a camp in the middle of the desert, and we're going to fill a backpack full of rocks, and we're going to make you carry that backpack with no water for 5 miles up the steepest incline the world has ever seen, and you're like a 14-year-old kid, and you're just like, okay, you're going to come back and you're not going to be gay anymore. It's like, well, first of all, that's like electroshock therapy. It doesn't change any of the way that the brain works, and it may actually solidify this, and I think this actually contributes to a lot of people's behaviors. Water, or you don't have enough electrolytes, drink some Gatorade. I haven't got Gatorade. I don't think so. It's not like I was dehydrated for the past 10 days. I might be missing something else though. I don't know. It's like, I care more about the abuse than I care about the motivation behind the abuse. It's just like, parents abuse children because they have personal insecurities, or they're narcissistic, or in a clinical sense, narcissistic, or whatever it may be. I don't really care if that is, I don't care what motivates that. The only way that we should be doing in dealing with delving into well, why did they behave the way that they behave, is so it serves as a cautionary tale, where it's like, well, wait a minute, are those some of the things that I believe? How do I actually deal with this in a way that's more rational, so I can learn from their mistakes? How did this person go off the deep end? That type of a deal. but I was saying in the sense of electroshock therapy, that doesn't actually help. Oftentimes that destroys the brain. And so in the case of like literally trying to abuse somebody into not being gay anymore is actually going to make it significantly worse, because that's the way the human psyche works. Is if somebody attempts to change you with force, then that force ends up just making it fester inside of them even more. Whereas actually, if you sat down and spoke with them, they could actually see it the way, or at least begin to see it the way that they see it. It's far more productive to be able to sit down with somebody and rationally say, what are you dealing with, and how are you feeling about this, and what do you believe about this, and so I think a lot of the time the natural conclusion for somebody when you actually abuse them in response to what they do, whether that be sort of a verbal beration or a physical type of a deal, like is that people are going to look at that and say, well, you clearly can't be the good guy here, so maybe you're wrong about everything, and I'm not actually going to go along with what you want me to do. This is actually the most common human reaction to that, and I think it's entirely, what's the word? I think it's very much biological. I mean, if you think of this as like, sort of the cavemen, and one caveman wants something from another caveman, and rather than just asking kindly, he just like, bunks them on the head, or they start like wrestling, whatever. Do you think he's going, caveman number 2 is going to say, yeah, I think you're right about that, and I may be willing to lend you some credence on that, and I think you've convinced me? Or is he going to say like, piss off, I'm going to double down on this just to, just to prove to you that just as a middle finger to you, like, this is how you actually create changes in someone else. This is how you influence people, is you actually have to start from common ground, where it's like, okay, what do you believe? Let's take that principle and actually redirect from that base principle into something that that makes sense. And it's not necessarily a principle, but it's something that's within their psyche as something that they believe to be sort of I mean, I suppose that's a principle, but like a rule, something that they really consider, that they think about. Be right back. No trouble. So it's like this, you sort of hijack it by appealing to something that they actually believe in, and it's not necessarily hijacking. It's just appealing to sort of their humanity, being like, well, I know that you are that we can both agree on this type of a thing, so therefore it go in this direction. You have to be able to if you take something that on its face is just the opposite of what they can possibly believe in, then you're not going to be able to make any headway there. You actually have to start from where they believe and then reinvigorate that with redirect sort of that, giving concessions and whatnot. So it's like, I don't think there's really anything wrong with just having a discussion. Obviously, it's just like, well, my issue is when it actually turns into abuse. If somebody is shouting someone down, if somebody's actually physically hurting somebody, that's actually a problem. When it comes to just talking with somebody, there's literally no possible way that can be abusive. That communicating with somebody can be abusive unless there's actually some sort of a way that they are being, I don't know. It's like, the way that you convince somebody is by taking something that they believe and by building upon that belief that you can sort of hold in common to help them see things the way that you see them. The way that you invigorate somebody against you is by hijacking something and sort of victimizing them out of it. Where it's like, well, this thing that and I suppose it's a game theory type of a deal, where you believe this in this tactic, and this can get very bloody very quickly, but it's like you believe in that's where I was going with this, like that you have this insecurity, and based off of what your behavior is, I can guess pretty easily, now that I've built up a profile of the way that you work, that you probably are really sensitive about this thing. So I'm going to see if I've identified a chink in your armor, and I'm going to stab it as hard as I can and twist the knife as roughly and as quickly as I can, just to see how much damage I can do. It's like that, emotionally speaking, that is going to really turn somebody against you. That's sort of a mind games, mental warfare. And that person is going to forever see you as their enemy, because that's going to have seen as like this sort of a fight or flight situation where it is mental, and it doesn't necessarily escalate to being physical, if that person is civilized, because most civilized people are going to have to be pushed really hard to become physical, and this is absolutely an indictment on people. If any amount of words that somebody can say to you will force you to if they can control you with your words and can cause you to physically attack them due to their words, you are not civilized. You are not in control of yourself, and that is actually just not a healthy and well-adjusted way to deal with somebody who dislikes you, or somebody who has different interests than you, or I suppose competing interests with you is what I should say. It's just, you can't exist in a society where people say something that offends you and then you respond by like attempting to kill them. Like that, that's just not how things work. So yeah, that's obviously a big tangent here, but I wanted to just have a look at this, actually starting this for once, goodness sake. Yeah, already like 50 minutes in every single time. But yeah, just starting out here with the gay. This is like the male homosexual flag. I'm not certain if there's a name for it in particular, but that's what it represents, is male homosexuality in particular. So yeah, you're going to conversion therapy camp tomorrow. I'm out of water. I think I'm actually going to get water. I just don't want to be like too thirsty. Goodness. Righto. This is where I left off. I can understand why this type of a situation could be distressing to people, because especially when the entire discourse has framed this type of a situation as we're gonna kill you, or we're gonna torture you by like, continually, we're going to beat the gay out of you, that type of a deal. Like, when they see that as that sort of a distressing situation, then obviously that is not going to be anything but distressing. So I understand why people feel that way when they've been told that that is what the situation is. And I certainly don't deny that there's definitely been, goodness sake, what was it? I swear I heard, maybe it was on like a Megyn Kelly podcast or something, but I swear I heard of this. There was a woman who, a young woman, she was a teenager at the time, but she had escaped a facility of some kind that was meant to be I guess you would call it a conversion therapy camp, some sort of a program where they were going to this camp and they were all going to be disciplined, and there was actually a lot of like abuse going on in that situation. So obviously when a situation like that is abusive, I have absolutely no issue with saying, yeah, let's actually send the people, goodness sake, send the people responsible to jail. I don't think that necessarily that parents who send their children there are responsible if they didn't actually know that they were going to be signing them up for things that were going to be abusive. But certainly I think if you actually have children and remove it from the gay type of a situation, if you send your children in order to punish them for a behavior that they that they know that the parents disapprove of, And we're talking people who are under 18, presumably, just teenage, like, I don't know, 12 to 16 generally. Maybe it could be earlier than that. But if you send them to this program, and the parents expect, well, they're going to be disciplined and they're going to be taken care of, and they're going to come back and they're going to actually have a great respect for the values that I have tried to teach them, and this is going to be a fruitful intervention for them, and they're going to come out of it better. Like, if that's the entire situation, because a lot of the time that's sort of the idea behind any sort of a program where, like Dr. Phil, where you send her to the ranch type of a deal, like any sort of a program that's intended to facilitate mental and emotional change in somebody for poor behavior is intended to just be, they're going to be better coming back. And there are many situations like this where there are facilities where people, rehab is kind of like this, depending on the programs that they've got, where, you're basically going to a camp and you are being told how to mitigate your actions and your behavior. And listen, sometimes discipline is the kindest thing that somebody can give to you, and I say this from experience, that it's actually very, very valuable for somebody to say, you are not behaving properly. Let me show you, and let me explain to you, and let me tell you that I'm not going to allow you to do this, and here is why. This is something that you need to be thinking about. This type of an idea, that type of an approach to it is actually very, very conducive towards helping people go from being unstable and poorly behaved to stable and well behaved and well adjusted, and having those types of interventions at an early point in life, especially when things are going like quite wrong, will actually help with success later on in life to an immense degree. I'm not against those types of programs inherently. What I'm obviously against is when they become abusive and when they become coercive and when they're actually, a lot of the time those situations, they're going to come out of that with an even worse mentality and attitude and behavior, because when somebody tells you what to do and says that if you don't do what I want you to do, and I'm going to back it up with physical force most of the time, and then they don't even explain. They're just like, no, this is the way that things are, and they don't appeal to you. They don't actually encourage you, or don't try to convince you at all. And it's just like, no, these are the way that things are going to be, and you're going to have to listen, and you are going to have to put up with this because tough, Most of the time people reject that. Most of the time people don't like being told what to do, and that's an anthropological, biological, psychological aspect of being alive. Like, people just don't respond to that very well. So obviously I don't think that that's productive, and it's also, I do believe that should be illegal, prosecutable. It's just not conducive towards anybody being treated well when this is the situation that you're putting up with. So this is, we have an idiom in my language, an egg in a stone, which refers to someone who has been raised in a way where they're very cared to. I was one of the cases, and I'm not entirely certain what that means. But anyhow, my future was decided for me, either a doctor or a lawyer. It has to be the #1 university in the country too. And I believe he is saying that he's Asian. I don't know if he was specifically from China or where it was, but this seems to match up with what I understand, with sort of the general idea that I understand behind a lot of Asian culture, with sort of the tiger moms and whatnot. I've heard of these concepts before, so this is plausible kind of read for me, is that it's just okay, so you're dealing with this strict culture. Makes sense. So it said, it was so bad to the point where I can't even go visit a friend, even in summer break. My parents would lock up all the game consoles during school year until summer break. I had one Game Boy Color hidden in my closet, and that's the only friend I had off school. See, I don't really have any qualms about parents disciplining their children by locking up all the game consoles. Now, the whole school year until summer break, I don't think that that's reasonable, because you know, as a human being, you have to allow yourself victories, and I think this is something that ends up damaging, at least on the emotional side. Well, yes, Asian cultures, especially when they come to America, tend to be extremely successful because they really don't take failure for a they take nothing but success for an answer. You must be successful at all costs, and I think there's a lot to be gained from that, with understanding why so much of that success, so much of that success is owed to, like parents who hold high standards, and I don't think there's anything wrong with holding high standards, but you have to hold high, albeit realistic standards. If you tell your child that what you teach them is that they can never ever give themselves a single moment of victory, where they can never ever relax, you are going to raise somebody who is very mentally unhealthy, and I don't know. I don't think it's going to be conducive towards somebody. They may be successful, but they're far less likely to be happy, and there's a lot of sort of shaving off of the human psyche when this is what you're doing to somebody, where not even on the weekends, no friends. You've completely desocialized and isolated your child. This is not going to be good for them at all, and the moment that they actually get out of you, and this is also an issue with helicopter parenting, which tends to be more of an issue in the white demographic, to my understanding, white middle class demographic, to my understanding, that's sort of where you end up more often with that, rather than with what's the word? With Asian cultures, they tend to not necessarily be as helicopter parent. The tiger mom is generally what they call that, but with a sort of a white middle class parent, that's the helicopter parent most often. Obviously, the concept can apply to anybody. It's just most common within that demographic. The moment that the child is out of range of the helicopter and they're no longer being surveilled constantly, do you think they're going to actually be able to live up to the unobtainable standards that you've given them? They need to actually have the capacity for failure, and they also have to be able to recognize success and to be able to celebrate success. And if you never get those victories, you're never going to be able to actually feel like you've accomplished something, because it's always going to be the next thing. And then what happens? Well, they might be the CEO of a company, or they might be an extremely successful law practitioner of whatever kind, or a doctor or whatever, but they're going to potentially just end up committing suicide, because like, well, I've got billions of dollars here because I worked my way up into the pharmaceutical or whatever the situation is, but they might just end up committing suicide because it's like, well, wait a minute, I've got all of this and I don't know if I could climb this ladder any higher, because no matter how high I got, because I started from all the way down there and now I'm all the way up here, no matter the distance, it's never been enough for me. So I actually don't want to climb anymore. I don't want to walk anymore. I don't want to continue down this road because it's going nowhere. And I would rather just be able to relax for the first time in my life. That is going to be the situation you end up putting your child in if you treat them this way. So obviously my heart goes out to this individual, because this sounds like a very, very difficult situation to be raised in. And it's not because of the video games, but it's because of the it could be anything. You have to be realistic in the way that you limit these things. I don't think limiting video games is at all a bad thing. You just have to actually be able to have whatever the child is interested in, be it video games, be it reading, or be it whatever it may be. You have to actually use that as an incentive for them, where it's just like, well, you don't get to eat the cake until you've had your green vegetables. Eat your green vegetables, you actually have to say, there are some things that we have to do in order to get the things that we want. And that is actually what you should be using it as, rather than saying, No, you should expect to always be working, because you always have to be able to give 100% on every single test, and you always have to be extremely successful when you are practicing your instrument, and I will bruise your knuckles every single time you get an incorrect note on the piano or what have you. Like that kind of an attitude, well, it may be very successful in actually whipping them into shape and causing them to have success, but it's not actually going to care for their needs, because they do have needs. Every single human being has needs, but they're not going to think that those needs matter until it's too late. And oftentimes what ends up happening with that is, if they end up being isolated enough, they might not end up being what the parents really want them to be at all. But they can certainly, I hate this twitchy eye. It really just is bothering the crap out of me. I can't even deal with this. This sucks. But yeah, this is a very, very unhealthy way to be raising somebody. And sometimes I think they might end up coming out of that situation where it's just like, well, this is the way that things were when I was a kid, so this is the way that I'm going to treat my kid. That's probably why it tends to be sort of a generational, no more generational curse. You lady devils are tube tied. Yeah, like your only friend. It's like they gave him exactly what they didn't want him to have. They didn't want him spending a lot of time on the video games. So rather than spending his time on something more healthy, because it also limited his friendships, he ends up so that his only friend is a Game Boy Color. Like, you've just created a crisis of a human being. And this is on your shoulders as the parent. You have to understand that this is what you've done to your kid. And anything that you see in them, this misery or this lack of success, or in his case, his gayness, it's gonna fall on you because you've desocialized them so hard. Do you think and this is part of the importance here. I think that there are many factors that I'm certain there's a biological factor, there's a nature and nurture. But I think nature is whatever it is. Nurture is far more important to becoming who we choose to be than what we already are. So that's what you can actually take. What's the word? That you can take accountability and take credit for who you choose to be and not who you just were one day. So it's interesting, this sort of dilemma, but I truly do think that can it be said that perhaps he would not have become gay, or at least he would not have broken in, we'll see later on, but it kind of solidifies to him that that's what he should be. Because he eventually, through trial and error, figured out that his parents didn't have his best interest in mind, or at least that's of course what it seems like to him. Because what evidence has he got to the contrary? It kind of seems like my parents are out to get me. This is what you were teaching your child when you do this. You actually have to connect with them in a way that makes them feel loved, wanted, appreciated, cared for, heard. And this is not it, So it's like, if you don't want your kid to be gay, maybe you shouldn't ostracize them to this position. If you want your kid to be successful, maybe you have to allow them to enjoy their own success. Maybe if you want your kid to behave in the best way that is going to be good for them, maybe you should actually allow them to enough freedom to screw up a little bit so that they can actually learn, because this is not going to end up going in that direction. Every end of the day at school, my parents would send a driver to come pick me up in our family's van. They kept telling me, this is something that's just going to bother me, that this is the wrong, I forget what you call this, an asterisk, because this is a quote, but he's trying to use apostrophe. It's just kind of funny, but sometimes that's just grammatical or typing or whatever. I believe he has mentioned that his English is not his first language, so it's not like I'm gonna crucify him over it. They kept telling me that we are poor. I should have known something was up. But the point is, I was not exposed to the outside world as much as I should have been. That is actually really interesting, that a driver picks you up in your family's van. We are poor. If you're poor, how can you afford to pay a driver to pick you up in the family van? Like, should have known something was up. I actually am curious as to what that is kind of alluding to. My first exposure to gay media was unfortunately done as a joke. My friends were shouting in one corner of the room that they were watching an icky movie. It was Brokeback Mountain. I laughed it off as usual with my friends. Oh, goodness, that like friggin' spooked me. I laughed it off as usual with my friends, but something inside me had piqued an interest. I kept asking myself if this is possible. That's when it confirmed within me. I had an inkling since a long time ago, but the thought of being with a man brings me joy. I am gay. This is an interesting concept, that the thought of being with a man. Is this in a sexual sense, or is this in a romantic, or is it both? Like, this is interesting because, like, a lot of the way that I think the sort of the dichotomy is presented when it comes to this the sort of alphabet mafia framing is that, you know, why do we have to come out when straight people don't have to come out? And it's just like, well, because status quo. And I'm not saying status quo as in it's wrong to be status quo. I'm saying, like, it's kind of what you're designed to be is straight, and being gay is gonna kind of be, like, not necessarily abnormal, but statistically speaking, like not sort of that it should be considered like bad because it doesn't happen as often, but that it is statistically abnormal. It's certainly natural. You know, I've discussed this on stream previously, but it's not like there should necessarily be a stigma where you're a worse person for doing it necessarily, because I genuinely, as a libertarian, I don't think that there's going to be any issue, any sort of a risk to anybody else's health due to any sort of a consensual behavior between two people who are capable of consent, when it only affects, when the consequences thereof only affect them. But I do find it interesting that it's like, someone who's straight doesn't end up thinking like consciously being with as a man or a male, a teenage male, you're just like, being with the thought of being with a woman brings me joy. I am straight. It's just like, you don't hear that because nobody really thinks that. Like, it's interesting. Like, it's just interesting. Like, I don't really know what else to sort of contribute to that other than like, like, that's an interesting idea there that I'm not certain necessarily lends credence to the idea that that homosexuality or homosexual behavior or tendencies and whatnot are innate. Like, the fact that you had to realize it implies that it was something that you actually did decide. And I believe that there's a certain amount of it that is kind of like, well, of course I would. Why would I do anything any other way? And there's also an aspect of like, well, I decided that for myself that it didn't bother me that this behavior was this way, and that it is most comfortable to me, makes most sense to me. A lot of what I tend to hear, and actually this was sort of my first introduction to the sort of, I suppose, existence of lesbians in general. But like, just sort of the entire idea being that, what's the phrase? that there's like a where was I going with that? I've kind of lost my train of thought a little bit. What is like if somebody thinks that it is what's the word? That is natural. That it is natural. It was I am slurring my words a little bit here. If somebody thinks it's 100% not natural but innate, that you don't choose. I think if you don't choose to be gay, then there's like a lot of things that you don't choose to do. Like, you know, sort of the way that I would frame it is that, you know, you don't choose your temptations, but you do choose how you deal with them. And temptation in the sense that it's something that you want to do. You know, I may have a temptation to eat a Nutella sandwich every day, and, you know, is there anything wrong with that inherently? It was like, well, I don't think it's like a sin to eat a Nutella sandwich, but I do have to look at the consequences thereof, and looking at that in that sort of a sense where, well, you know, if I eat nothing but Nutella sandwiches, then I'm going to just end up being having a lot of carbs, and when your diet is carbs only, I hear that's not necessarily the best thing for you. You need to have a little bit more balance than that. So that type of an idea where it's just like, well, you don't necessarily choose that is what you like, but you do choose how you mitigate that and taking control over that. And I don't think that there should be inherently an embrace of a behavior for the sake of the behavior, where we should like be celebrating that that behavior is a inherent good, because there are some people who believe that maybe it should be avoided, or straight up that it is an inherent evil, I suppose. Like, I don't necessarily think that that's the greatest idea, obviously. But what's it say? I never saw Brokeback Mountain. I don't really have anything to contribute to that, because it's interesting where, you know, I don't think it's necessarily like morally wrong in a pragmatic sense, in a political sense, I suppose. Like, I don't think that we should consider it to be sort of illegal to involve yourself in consensual homosexual behavior, because there's no externalities to that. But the moment that you actually start involving other people into it is when that's actually an issue. So it's like, you know, somebody being gay and discussing and openly discussing being gay, so long as they're not like, you know, putting sort of a graphic image in your face or something like that. Like, I think that is like, obviously there's nothing really that should be, because politically the way that my sort of ideology views things in general is that you don't you have to look at every single behavior, every single law as something that you can't what's the word, if you legislate that, then the logical consequence for disobeying that that law is the government, the state showing up with guns to force you to comply with it, or to punish you for not complying with it. So it's like, do I think that being gay should be illegal? Which is like, well, consequentially, there's nothing about being gay that inherently causes harm to other people. You know, just inherently being like, well, I kind of like dudes, and I'm gonna, you know, sleep with other dudes who also kind of like dudes, then I don't really see an issue with that. it's when it starts to be forced onto people, or any sort of a thing where it's like, well, yeah, you can do whatever you like. Sort of the idea of waving your arms around as much as you like until you hit me in the face doesn't mean everybody should be waving their arms around, but they do have the right so long as nobody's getting hurt. Like that sort of a deal where you can't be dealing with people with those sort of externalities where it's like, yeah, we don't want the state coming in when there's no externalities here, and consequentially, right, like there's no issue with that. I'm just rambling at this point. Of course, during that time, people were not friendly with the thought, ew, you're into men, ew, get away from us, listen, I'm okay, but don't fuck me, all right? Ew, the disease is here. It's like, it depends on the situation entirely, but like, this doesn't necessarily like hurt my feelings as a bisexual male. Like, it's just like, okay, like, I think some of these sort of operate off of like, flawed ideas, but I don't think people should be militantly supportive of other people's decisions for any purpose in general. I think I really do lament that at the foundation of this great country of America, that there was no inherent law, because there's an implied law in the Constitution, an implied right protected by the Constitution, that of freedom of association, that we can't force you to associate with this person, and we can't force you to not associate with this person. The only time that we can force you into not associating with somebody or into associating with somebody is when you've actually committed a crime. So you can't associate with somebody if you're actually intending to like murder somebody, or a lot of people, when you actually raise the stakes significantly on that, where perhaps it ends up into a situation of national security, for example, where, if you're colluding with somebody, associating with somebody in order to try to assassinate the president, for example, which is apparently all the rage these days, but for goodness sake, they then obviously they're going to say, well, the stakes are a little bit too high for you to be associating with somebody when you're actually colluding to do something that is not good, clearly. But I really do lament that wasn't something on there where it's like, hey, the way that I would sort of put it is that, like, and this would actually have made for a far greater amendment than I forget what the Civil Rights Act, or whatever the sort of laws that were put on the books were, but I would have preferred if it was just Congress shall make no law regarding, because I love that language. Like, it's just so simple and straightforward, and I wish we were able to preserve it. Especially in the Constitution, but it's, Congress shall make no law regarding the freedom of the people, restricting the freedom of the people to associate with who, to associate who, where, or what they may, sort of. It's like if somebody says, hey, I'm openly gay, and other people say, hey, that's disgusting, I don't want to see you, then it's like, do you want to be around those people? Do you want to do business with those people? Do you want to talk with those people? Because it's like, when I kind of see that, I tend to be like, well, okay, piss off then. Like, if you really think that my temptation, or my proclivities, I should say, because temptation people assume that word to be one thing or another, and I try to differentiate here, but yeah, proclivities, it's like, if I say my proclivities, not necessarily my behavior, but my proclivities, that's what that means, right? Proclivities, tendency to choose or do something regularly, an inclination or predisposition toward a particular thing. And I guess that is a bit vague, but it's not necessarily behavior, but it is, I suppose it is a proclivity. It's just like, well, if my proclivities bother you in such a way that you think that I'm like disgusting in it's like maybe you don't understand, or maybe I don't want you to understand, and actually I would feel much better going with a group of people who is not going to be judgmental about that type of a thing. I'm going to actually go back into my in-group about this. It's out-group homogeneity bias at work here. So it's troublesome. But it's like this idea where it's like, just because somebody is, all right with, I suppose, identifying with the label, of being, homosexual, bisexual, whatever, doesn't mean that they're just going to like rape you in a corner, right? Like, it's a very immature way to go about it. I had a younger, he was on the younger side. He was teenage, probably only like a sophomore in high school or something like that, maybe more. But he was a co-worker, and at one point they were like chatting at one point, and he was just like, I haven't got a single problem with gay people. I just don't want to be raped by a man. And it's just like, obviously there's a flaw in that idea where it's just like, well, you think that gay people are more likely to rape males, and it's just like, well, I don't think straight men rape males. Like, I don't think straight men really want anything to do with intercourse with a male, forced or consensual. So it's like, yeah, well, I suppose in that sense, but the sort of idea where it's just like, well, are you implying that gay people can't be words come to the brain and out the mouth? Like, are you implying that gay people are incapable of being well-adjusted enough to understand that rape is wrong and that they shouldn't do it? Like, that is a weird thing to imply. And I think a lot of the people who say that type of a thing don't really understand what the implications of that is. Many people say things they don't understand the implications of because they haven't really thought through it necessarily. And that's the importance of actually speaking with people like this, where obviously the knee-jerk reaction is like, well, you think I'm disgusting because of who I am, or whatever sort of the perspective is. So I don't really want to be around you, because you clearly view me as an out-group that you don't want to be around either. And I don't think I really want to force this situation because it's going to be unpleasant for both of us. I think it would actually be far, far more productive to combat that and say, like, I'm not a disease. Like, I just think a certain way, and if other people could say, I don't know, you just have to appeal to the humanity, where it's just like, okay, I understand where you're coming with that, but I have a different I have a different risk assessment when it comes to that, to behavior, and I don't see that as much of a problem as you might. And two people, and obviously when people are young, this is going to be what's happened, because these people are being governed by an amygdala, and pretty much that's it. And it's like, obviously this is what happens. I don't understand why this is even a surprise necessarily to a lot of people, where it's like, hey, when you're young and you're kind of dumb, you kind of can't really think about this. It's just the amygdala, and I think that's also part of the reason why he ended up doubling down so much on this in his life story here, is because when you're young, the amygdala is actually recording trauma, and when it records those trauma, it's kind of writing down, okay, this is a hardcore rule here that when you're in this type of situation, it's fight or flight mode. And a lot of the time you may end up flight, you may end up running into the opposite direction of whatever that force was. It's just the importance of parents in actually being able to rectify mistakes and misunderstandings from the parent's side, and actually being the one in control in a molding and in what's the word? Helping their child develop. You're not there to push them in one direction or another, but especially both of my parents. There are two things in life I would like you to never be: one, addicted to drugs; two, being the wrong gender. Like, this is an interesting way to say that, where it's just like, well, I can't be like my response to that would be, well, I'm never going to be addicted to drugs because I decided a long time ago that wasn't good for you, and that I didn't want that kind of a future because I saw what that can do to other people just through examples. Like I don't even have to like talk with anybody to understand. Yeah, I'm never going to be addicted to drugs. And then my response to the second would be, I can't be the wrong gender. I'm not capable of being the wrong gender. Like, or I suppose I shouldn't say gender, because we mean sex here, because gender is a term that used to refer to grammar and now has been used to refer to the way you feel about yourself, your own self-perception, and the way that you present yourself, and et cetera, et cetera. I would say, what do you mean by being the wrong gender? What do you mean? It's just like, oh, well, there will be a back and forth with that. Because, asking what do you mean is, and there are some parents that are sensitive, and they're going to consider, oh, you talking back? It's just like, no, I'm using the Socratic method here. I just want to actually clarify the terms of my, the two rules that I can't break without you disowning me. Like, I like to understand what I need to avoid in order to keep in your good graces. And so I need to know what you mean by that. But I would imagine, talking with this person, they'd be like, well, yeah, you would think that you would want to be the opposite gender that you are, but I know that you're not, because you are what you were born as. And I'd be like, oh, okay. Like, so we're talking about biological sex. Like, I am not capable of being the wrong biological sex. Like, there's nothing right or wrong about being male or female. It just is. There's no right or wrong. There just is. Like, and there's not really anything that I can really do one way or the other to actually change that. Now, other people might believe that, well, there's behavior that, there's clothes you wear, there's things you say, things you think, things you do that actually indicate what you literally are. And I just say, it's just like, well, if you think that if you think that changing that makes me less of a man, then maybe you are the one who thinks that it's possible to change your gender or your sex. Like, it's like, hey, I can behave quote unquote feminine. That doesn't make me less of a man or less of a male, an adult male. I mean, that's the definition of man. Like, it doesn't make me any less to behave in a quote unquote feminine way, because I still got a penis. Like, it still got those pesky Y chromosomes and everything. It's just like, it's kind of funny. So it's interesting. You have someone going around being rude while adverting for your channel. Yeah, I'm not surprised that I've got a schizo it's been like literally like 2 years now. So yeah, I'm not a stalker. 1, 2, 3. Sometimes he makes me laugh. Yeah, he's insane. He's an impersonator. He's definitely a stalker. I feel bad for him. I think he needs mental help. But yeah, pay it no mind, and I'm sorry that he's bothered you as well. I hope you don't end up catching him. He's kind of a disease. Like, to stay away. I hope I'm not contagious. Yeah, I don't know. Next slide. Being brainwashed by family, I have suppressed the thought of affection for men as much as I could. I acted straight as I could ever be. This is interesting because I feel like the suppression, like, yeah, psychologically suppressing sort of what was the word? Proclivities, I suppose. Suppressing sort of feelings and never being able to let those out actually increases those feelings. Like, it's like, you're gonna create a dam. Eventually, when that dam bursts, the water's going to be rushing really hard. So it's like, I can certainly see how this ends up turning out this way, where it's like, if I feel like I can't even talk to, like, if I talk to my parents and say, hey, I think I might be gay, then they're actually going to like freak out on me. Then I can understand why this kind of ends up festering. And I think, honestly, because I think it's a relatively common thing throughout the ages that that kids talk to their parents and they say, hey, I think I'm gay, and they're just like, well, no, you're not. Like I understand why you might feel that way, but like you've always loved girls, or I don't know, whatever it is. Like that type of thing happens relatively often, and I think people who have these who refuse to have these conversations with their children are actually probably creating exactly what they don't want them to become, which is like, hey, if you actually wanted your child to not be gay, maybe you could just talk with them about that and make them feel understood. Either way, it's just like you shouldn't love your kid less for falling into whatever they're falling. It's like everybody's gonna have a struggle, and it's like you shouldn't twist the knife when this is your child. Like obviously this is just kind of silly. It's all good, but with him coming in and telling the streamer to shut up and being rude, we'll get him a report. Yeah, no, report away. It's better for everybody that I mean, he's just going to create like infinite accounts and whatnot. So good luck. Like definitely, try not to egg it on or anything. But it's like, yeah, like I hope it. I have an AI watching for him. Yeah, I got to get my own Jarvis, to be able to scour. Yeah, I don't know. It just happens. Very good at banning before they message. Yeah, and the auto mod honestly is fine on Twitch in particular. But yeah, you don't want to end up getting like someone going around and slandering and harassing and just like it's just there's enough negativity in the world to not have it like specifically aimed towards you in particular. Yeah, it's like that. This is just somebody who has like a complex with like getting negative attention. So you can't give the negative attention. It's that's what you do. Bullies want reactions. You just can't give a reaction. So yeah, sorry that happened. Like it, I wish it wasn't so. Can't control other people. That's why I came to warn you about it. He's also in your chat. Yeah, I've seen him. Yeah, he's been in and out. I had like 1 month. I had like 1 month where it's just like, oh yeah, he's got his computer taken away for a bit. Yeah, have a good day. Thank you. Have a good day yourself as well. Yeah, zoinkers. What was it? I acted straight as I could ever be until I found the internet. And yeah, this is exactly what I was getting at before with this sort of the helicopter parenting, where it's like, well, I'm going to helicopter my child, and they're not going to they're not going anywhere without me. And then the moment that they actually leave to go to college, it's like, of course they're going to go hog wild. Like you have not taught them that the way that you see the world and the way that you see like, oh, that you should avoid this and you should do this. You've actually not given them any sort of an incentive to not behave in the way that you don't want them to behave, or the way that you believe them that they shouldn't behave. And so it's like the moment that they actually get, because I think I suppose you could say sort of on the cultural left, or the American left, there's a sort of attempt at baby-proofing the world against getting your feelings hurt, which is a fool's errand. Because hey, when you've exited the state of nature in a Lockean sense, there's other people that you have to deal with, and those other people have different interests to you, and those other people are going to have to, they're going to want to say what they want to say, and that's going to end up hitting you, and it's going to offend you, and you can't baby proof the world against other people's words, because other people's words are going to be mean sometimes. Does it make it right that the words are mean sometimes? Well, not necessarily. People can definitely be out of line, but it shouldn't be illegal, because it's part of the process. It's part of having part of being able to grow is to make mistakes. If you go in super hard at somebody and just go in as hard as you can about them and just oppress them with the way that you are, not oppress, but like as in just being rude, just being unnecessarily rude to them. It's like, you have to be able to be given the room to screw up like that, so that other people can look at that behavior and say, well, okay, I don't think I want to be like that. And then maybe you can look back at it when you see the way that other people react around you, when they say, hey, this is not normal behavior, or this is not acceptable behavior, and we don't tolerate that. You end up feeling, that sort of a consequence in a social sense, with obviously there's no violence involved, or physical force involved, but it's like, when somebody turns their nose up at you for saying something that is exceptionally rude, then that is a social consequence for that behavior, where you have to start to think, well, why do people behave in that way? Maybe if I didn't behave in that way, then I wouldn't be in that situation. Maybe I would be making more friends if I were nicer to people, and what have you. So it's utterly necessary that is the case. But sort of that's sort of the issue with baby proofing on the cultural left in America is that we want to baby proof the world against so that nobody's feelings get hurt, which is just impossible. You can't have your feelings stay intact and have freedom of speech at the same time. And actually, I do believe that when you insulate yourself to that, it's like vaccines. Like when you keep yourself in a sterile environment for this long, you are not going to have enough antibodies to actually deal with when you get outside of that. And that's exactly what this is, where I think sort of the cultural American right will try to baby proof their children against things that they see to be what's the word, to be sinful or evil, or the rest of the world does that, but as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. That type of idea, where there's not exactly a reasonable what's the word, sense with discussing this type of a issue, where rather than actually educating on well, yeah, this is what other people do, but this is the reason why we don't do that. Like that actually is far more conducive to actually having somebody stick with you and be convinced of your ways, as a child and beyond, rather than saying just rejecting it. And it actually proves that you don't actually know why you believe what you believe. That why are people from your stream joining people's stream with OEO, your name lol? Man, sorry. I've had basically a schizo like stalker who is just like, I caught him like the plague, and he just impersonates me and other people and harasses and slanders and just goes all around. So like I'm sorry he bothered you. Just it's weird, because it's like he'll like advertise for me, but then like be like really like mad at people, and it indicates, I don't know, it's just insane. So sorry I had to deal with that. I'm not happy about it either, but yeah, I hope it clears up for you as well, because it's like it is what it is. I had like 1 month. I had like one month free of interference like that. So I'm sorry that's happening. Yeah, all of the accounts are the exact same. He's literally got like hundreds of Twitter and Twitch accounts that are probably like something similar to my name or involve my name in it. Like it's incredible. Like it's just someone who doesn't have anything better to do with their time than to try to make other people mad. So it's don't give bullies what they want. It's just not productive. Anyhow, luckily both of my parents did not know about technology and have left me to discover the internet by myself. A dangerous action, but it served the purpose I needed. What are gay people? What do you do when you like men? Can men kiss? Can men hug? being gay is okay. Love is love. You know about pride? Pride. The walls started to crack. See, and this is what I find really interesting about this entire concept, this entire topic is, I don't know, like, obviously this fits into sort of my understanding when it comes to this sort of theory that the case that I've made when it comes to like, hey, if you don't actually teach your kids why you believe what you believe, like I don't know, you first have to understand what you believe and why you believe it, so that you can actually defend those beliefs in and of themselves. And if you're going to teach your kid to believe what you believe and defend why you believe it, then you actually have to explain why you believe it, right? So if you believe that like being gay is a sin, or like the world is full of like demons, like I don't know, whatever the belief is, like I would just point to natural law, where it's like, well, yeah, like, you know, it's not wrong to feel that way, but like there's a better way to behave, type of a deal. Or like, I don't know, the purpose of reproduction is reproduction, and if you use it otherwise, then that's counter to its use. And so like, why would you do that? Like that type of an idea is something that needs to actually be sort of explained, rather than just like, well, being gay is wrong. And then it's like, well, obviously you end up in this situation, and then it's like, well, now I'm on Giggle. And you know, this, I think pride as something that exists is entirely just a what do you call it? I mean, it's the pendulum swinging back the other way, where people, because they weren't told and weren't given concrete ideas behind religious beliefs, and they were just given sort of like what do you call it? Like a small scale one family theocracy type of a deal. Like, because they were given that, like that doesn't actually help like them behave the way that you want them to behave. It doesn't help them actually be happier, of course, in the end. Like if you say, well, being gay, you know, you can feel that way and you can enjoy it, but it's going to bring you short-term pleasure, and in the long term you're probably not going to actually be as joyful, and so therefore we're going to behave in the way that makes us joyful, and that involves XYZ. It does not involve like being gay. Like if you actually explain that to them, then they're going to be like, okay, I'm kind of with you with that, where it's like, now I'm not feeling any shame. Now I'm not kind of in this predicament here where I'm like, this is the state that I'm in, where it's like, oh, I'm just shut down. I don't want to talk to my parents about this, and I can't talk to anybody about this. Nobody understands. And then you go out into the world, and everybody else like understands, and it's like, oh, well, clearly my parents were wrong this whole time. It's like, if you as your parents, you as the parent, if you think that you're right, then you need to actually be able to, you know, indicate that correctness to the child. And, you know, children don't just reject what you tell them based off of like you telling, based off of, it's like, well, I just told them what was correct, and then they went out into the world and they got brainwashed. And it's like, well, I think that there's a significant amount of what you could pejoratively call brainwashing that exists online, in social media, in the rest of the world. But like, you know, if you insulate them again, then they're never going to be able to they're not going to be convinced. Like you haven't convinced them. In fact, what you've convinced them of is that they aren't loved by you because of who they are, and they're going to come to those conclusions without much of the help of other people. It's part of the reason why there's so many people who celebrate Pride is because they've like, I think Pride was small because they came to this conclusion sort of on their own, and then it grew larger because a lot of that was reactionary with the way that not necessarily physically, though there was certain, I wouldn't deny that there were absolutely what would legally be constituting hate crimes under the current laws, under laws that have been in place for a while. I don't think those laws should be in place because, again, as I say, why do you need a special name for a crime committed against a particular person for a particular reason? Why can't we just say, well, that was just murder, like aggravated assault? It's wrong no matter who you do it to and no matter the reasons why. Like, Should be pretty easy. I think I'm going to finish up here. A lot of people have shifted their thinking due to the voices of being gay is okay. That's an interesting wording, but I think I'm following, including me. I have accepted myself that being gay is okay. College years were different. Oh my gosh, you're gay. I've always wanted a gay friend. Oh my gosh, you have a boyfriend? You have to introduce him to us. I will fight for you if anyone ever bullies you. And so I hold on to the tiny gay flag for my tiny gay heart, happy that people have changed for the better, except them. See, and I think this is important, like, to consider that it's like, you know, people have changed for the better. It's like, I don't think people changed really all that much. You know, on an individual level. Like, obviously when people grow up, people change, and they become, you know, they come to different conclusions, obviously. Oh, see, I didn't even realize with the first slide that's actually his OC has like a scar. It just looks interesting. But yeah, like, I think, I don't know, perhaps you could say that, like, there is obviously like a generational sway in sort of the behavior that people involve themselves in, where it's like, yeah, people just change for the better. Like, obviously that's a sort of a perception, but when they say people have changed for the better, is that this is how you have to deal with gay people? Like, I don't really like this sort of idea where this is not actually advocating for freedom of association, where, you know, like, I obviously I think people have the right to, you know, same thing with freedom of speech, where it's like, you have a right to be an arsehole. Should you be an arsehole? No, you shouldn't be an arsehole, but you have the right to. So we shouldn't actually be using any sort of a legal means to prevent you from being an arsehole. We should just use a social means to prevent you from being an arsehole, to entice you not to be an arsehole. To say, well, if you act poorly, then I'm going to match that energy. I'm going to say, yeah, piss off, give you the middle finger there. Like, I don't really think there's anything sort of unfair about that. But when it comes to this sort of idea where we are going to shun you if you are anything but praiseworthy of my proclivities, be they behavior or simply inclinations, that spells doom for the country, I think, because eventually people are just going to end up in a divided state, where, you know, you can say, I absolutely understand, and maybe this is just me growing up in Utah, but like, I think especially adults are much more capable of this realm of thinking, where rather than sort of looking at it as this sort of like, ew, you're gay, like this is obviously a very high school attitude that was displayed here, but it's like, rather than thinking of it in that way, they don't also immediately jump to, oh, I wanted to be supportive, I'm going to be supportive. Like, it actually made me mad when I first ran into that, where it's just like, this is insulting to my intelligence and yours, that you have this sort of idea where it's just like, oh, you know, I want to be supportive of your behavior and you know, inclinations, proclivities, behaviors, whatever. It's like, why should you be supportive of something? It's like, yeah, you don't have to praise me for doing something that I do for myself. Like, there's nothing necessarily praiseworthy for that. It's just like, well, yeah, I do it because I feel like doing it. Why do you have to say, like you're just gonna like give me like a sort of a go off queen with that? It's just like, you know, if you're my friend, then you don't have to talk about like, oh, I'm so supportive of you. You don't have to like, you know, kind of go out of your way to be like, oh, you're supportive. It's like, why? Like, it kind of rankles me a little bit, and not sort of in the sense where it's just like, you're calling me gay. I don't like that you're calling me gay. It's like, no, I'm perfectly, well, I mean, in the past I haven't been, but I'm perfectly stable. Is that what's the word? Secure. That's what I'm like. I don't have any insecurities about my sexuality. I'm pretty secure in it. So it's not like, you know, someone being like, oh, you're gay, like I'm supportive of that, and just be like, no, you just called me gay. It's like, no, yeah, I'm bisexual. Like I don't have an issue with people seeing that I'm bisexual. What I do have an issue with is them looking at that and being like, oh, that is such a good thing that you're bisexual, good for you. It's like, don't patronize me. Like it's like, yeah, like that's just a proclivity. Like what, I don't let it define me. Why do I let you define me? I don't let it define me in the positive or the negative. Why should I let you define it in the positive or the negative? It's like, you know, there's a positive bigotry for that, and it's like, well, there's nothing critical about this. I like nuance. I like people being critical, and there's not much critical thinking behind sort of the idea of just like, oh, I'm just gonna, yay, yes, queen. You know, you're bi, isn't that so great that you're bi? It's just like, it just is. Like, it's not great, and it's not like awful, and it's not like the worst thing of my life or the greatest thing in my life, or it didn't define every single second. It's just there, it just exists. Like it's always just kind of like, it's more bothersome to me that people think of it in that way than the thing in and of itself is bothersome to me. And I think like throughout history, it's been like kind of, it's funny that this is sort of the dumb perspective that we have from either side, where it's like, being gay is bad. And they're just like, no, being gay is good. And it's just like, being gay is like, why is this a question that we have to like, we have to like discuss it with such a fervor? It's just like, alrighty, man. Like, it's just a thumbs up, like, cool. Alrighty. But yeah, was this, yeah, that's where I was at. Except them was referring to his parents. He says, you're going to a conversion therapy camp tomorrow. Your uncle said the same thing. He was cured after. How could you do this to us? We raised you. Now this is the parents getting offended and defensive due to the, you know, what the parents have, you know, figured out that his behavior was, because he didn't come to them with it. There's no way he came to them with it. They probably just looked it up or found out it was on his history or something like that, or they heard it through the grapevine that he was talking to people about being like, yeah, you know, I'm gay. I like dudes. You're gay. You like dudes. What's the Keemstar clip? Like, you like dudes. Like Scoob. But it's like, yeah, why are you like feeling victimized by this? Like you're like creating this own victimhood complex in sort of yourself, where your child's, it's like you did this to them. like you actually made them think, you brought them to this conclusion by hampering them in so hard about it. Because that's the funny thing is, like, you know, if, let's say, if my parents had been like, I can't believe that you're gay, and how could you do this to us? We raised you, we trusted that you would actually reflect our values, and we would do this and that. Then maybe the moment that I would have heard people talk about like, oh, I want to be supportive of you, then I would have like been like, yeah, I've never gotten that at home before. Maybe you're right. Maybe I should actually see this as a positive good. Whereas actually, because I was raised pretty damn well and had some really great supportive parents, in the way that parents are intended to be supportive, or that they're supposed to be supportive. Like, it's like, it just wasn't really an issue and so I actually had sort of the opposite reaction when people say, oh, I'm just going to be so supportive of you. It's just like, why are you patronizing me? Like, like this is just weird behavior. Like what causes this to happen? And I understand why people behave that way. I understand why people think this way. Obviously, in context, it'd be ludicrous of me to say that I don't understand this. Like, clearly I understand this. But it really is interesting that it's like, no, you wanted him to not be gay, and it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. You made him gay by doing this. And actually, this is the final nail in the coffin for him. They lost their son the moment that they did this. And, you know, if they would have said, they could have said, this is really hard on us because we didn't want you to turn out this way, but you we still love you. Like if they said, I think we made a lot of mistakes in putting a lot of pressure on you and keeping you super insulated, and I think maybe you wouldn't be this way if we had treated you better, and we are sorry. That wouldn't make him change his mind at that point, but maybe he'd still be in their lives. And I think people should really think hard about that. That first of all, if you're, a prospective parent, if you view your child being gay as like some sort of a disaster, then you need to get a grip and realize that you can actually prevent them by actually loosening up that idea a little bit that's set in your minds, where it's like, if my child becomes gay, then they will end up in hell. Like, you need to actually understand that, pragmatically speaking, if you treat them like that they are about to fall into the pit of fire and brimstone, then you can't treat them like they're aware of that and they're going to do it like just to spite you. Because the moment that you actually make it their fault, then they actually will jump into that pit just to spite you. You actually have to build up, and it really is just a symptom of poor parenting in general, where I think there's a lot to be benefited from in some of the ideas with it. The discipline, they got the discipline down, okay? They got the discipline down, but they don't have any of the grace. They got justice, no grace. No grace whatsoever. It's just 100% justice. This kind of an attitude cannot be had without a balance. There has to be that balance between justice and grace, and if you treat them with only the justice, they're not going to be around long enough for you to realize that you forgot to add some grace to that recipe. It's going to be too late. And if you want them in your in your life, and if you want them in your eternity, I suppose, then like if the idea is that you want them to come to heaven with you, maybe you should treat them every single second like you want to spend eternity with them. And if you do that, then maybe they're not going to question every single thing that you tell them. Like, maybe they'll take the discipline that they receive from you, and actually later on in life they're going to be grateful for that discipline, because I was. Because it wasn't just justice and no grace, it was justice and grace hand in hand right there, and that justice was incredibly good for me. You are not going to reject that from your parents if that's what they give you. But if what they give you is this, it's not gonna. You've created exactly the reaction that you wanted not to create. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more you grip onto that, the more it slips like sand through your fingers, and it just does not actually help. Like, it doesn't help suit your goals, and even if you do believe that these goals are in your child's best interest, as I would tend to believe due to my faith as well, you are not going to convince them by forcing everything like this, and then also making it about you. This is not about you. This is about them. This is about your child, and your child actually does have needs. If you only look towards nothing but the discipline, and I agree, you can't look at no discipline, because you can't be joyful without discipline. That's part of the reason why, you will end up being miserable if you only look after your seeking your inclinations, what you sort of just, I just feel like doing this. You're going to be miserable. You need that discipline. But if you only have discipline and no grace, justice but no grace, you're also going to be miserable. You're going to reject everything, and it's not going to go the way that you think it will if you are a parent. You have to be able to have them believe that they are still going to love you. That you as the parents are still going to love them, but that their behavior is, but that they think there is a better way to go about life, and that they actually do know that you as a parent, you actually do know better about it, that they understand. It's like, I understand you, that you feel this way and that this is difficult for you, but there's a way out of this, that there's a way out of feeling like you are dirty for doing this. You're not dirty for feeling this way. It's okay that you feel this way, because you can't control the way that you feel. You can only control what you do about it. And so let's do something about it. Let's do something that's healthy. Let's do something that's good about it. That's the sort of thing that, if people react in a reactionary sense from the left, say that you can't have that conversation with your children, then that's absolutely not acceptable. It's like, no, you can have that conversation with your child, because it actually helps keep these families together, and actually will be more conducive towards success and joy in the lives of the children when they grow up, is to have those parents in the home. Don't rip children away from their parents when the parents are actually doing something that is right, or that they're not, like, if they're abusing their kid, that's not right, rip them away. But if it's not even going to be ripping, because it's going to be sayonara, just like in this case. It's a religious camp too. It will help you. Plus, we can go visit you there and pray there too. Isn't that great? Go to bed. We'll leave tomorrow 10 a.m. They are so short-sighted if they thought that this was going to work. It's like, you have never had, because you can see the way that this is this isn't a conversation. Because like the way that I would deal with this, the way that my parents would have dealt with this, is we're going to sit down and we're going to say, this is what we found out. We found out that this is sort of a behavior. What's been going on? We want to hear from you. We want to know how you are feeling, and we want to be able to help in this, because this is certainly a difficult thing, an uncomfortable thing, if not perhaps a traumatizing thing, a difficult thing, and we don't want to be the enemies here. So we are going to act like friends. We're going to be friends, and we're going to be here for you. Like, that conversation is what needs to be had. What happens here is just, this is our idea for you. Here are all of the ideas that we've got for you. You should do this, and 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 you don't get a say in it, because you're just a teenager. You don't actually deserve any sort of a semblance of free will or say in the matter. We're just go to bed. There's no conversation here. It's like, how do you think that he's going to react to this? And so, of course, this is what happens. We had a long talk that night. There were also other reasons and arguments brought up, but in the end, so it's like, obviously they had a talk, but I don't think this was a two-way conversation. I held on to pride. I held on to the tiniest pride I had in my heart, and as I said to myself, that this will be okay. I think this is a natural consequence of the parents' behavior. That this is what happened. Do I think that means that he should have held on to the pride? Well, I don't think he should have. Do I think that he really thought he could do anything else? No. There's nothing that I can really expect somebody to do who's in that type of a situation to. It's like, of course you are going to react that way. So I really don't blame that reaction. Do I think it was good for him in the end? For however many reasons, yes. Or no? Wait, I forget the way that I phrased that question. I don't think this was good for him in the end. Due to my beliefs, I don't believe that this is the right way to go about it. But do I also believe that is his choice to make that risk assessment with with all of the information that he's taken in throughout his entire life? That's goodness sake, that's his choice to make that risk assessment. I think there's absolutely no issue that he made that risk assessment. Would I have done it? No. Did he? Yeah. Does he have the right to? Yes. Absolutely. And does he have plenty of reason to believe what he believes? Certainly. And yeah, I think everybody just comes to the conclusions they come to with all the information that they've got. And clearly his parents did not give him enough information to believe that he was loved by his parents, and therefore he had to embrace exactly the thing that his parents did not want him to embrace, because of course that's what you do when you are being put under that much pressure. But yeah. Accept conversion therapy. Run away from home requires courage. I don't know if this is like a game reference, but it's just like you have two choices. And this is actually really interesting. The sort of two things. I feel like accepting conversion therapy would also require courage, but it would also require I don't know. Both of these require courage, and in a sense, both of them could be considered as cowardice, because accepting conversion therapy is cowardice in the sense that you're not standing up to your parents in the way that they have, kind of destroyed the way that they've treated you. It's like you have a right to say, this is why I feel this way. This is why I believe what I believe. You have given me no evidence to suggest that you actually care that I feel this way. And you actually have given me more evidence to suggest that you think that I am bad for feeling this way, when I didn't really have much say in this. This is just the way that I ended up. And I think you had a significant part to play in this. Like, that would actually require a lot of courage for him to say. Now, obviously, we don't know all of the things that were said, but clearly that is the way that the conversation ended, was just go to bed. We're leaving at 10 a.m. And, there's cowardice in not, conversion therapy in the sense that, if you go along with it, then you're cowardly in the sense that I suppose you are, or you have a lack of courage, not necessarily cowardice, but there was a lack of courage in not standing up to your parents. There was a lack of courage in doing what you were told, as you were told, because you're complying with that. But there is also courage in the sense of, I'm going into the belly of the beast. I'm going somewhere where I don't want to go, and I'm going to take in information that I don't want to take in. And this is going to be really challenging for me, but maybe I will learn some things. And maybe, because sometimes you can go into the situation, set in your mind with a determined resolution that you are not going to be convinced, swayed one way or another, that you are going to say, actually, yes, I'm going to have courage in this situation. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to say, no, I am this way. This is the way that I am. And you are not going to be able to squeeze it out of me no matter how hard you push. It's never going to switch me up. And if you were that confident in that, if you were that courageous, I suppose, if you thought that was the case, then maybe you wouldn't have a what's the word? Maybe I don't know. I would potentially enjoy going into that type of situation where it's like, no, I believe completely differently. And you're not going to convince me in the other direction. But at the same time, it's very, very adversarial. Nobody wants to step into the belly of the beast in that sense. But, also running away from home does require courage, but it also is cowardly in the sense that you're avoiding that. You're avoiding the belly of the beast. So it's like you could really twist it either way if you want to do. I think there's a lot of, every single decision requires courage in some semblance or another, or it can be construed to have been motivated by cowardice in one form or another. So it's a kind of an interesting topic. I gotta move that fan because it evidently was not pointing at me. Almost finished with it. I held on to pride. I held on to the tiniest pride I had in my heart, as I said to myself that this will be okay. It gave me the courage I needed. I woke up at 8 a.m. that morning, made as little noise as possible, dragged my belongings into a huge plastic bag. I'm trying to think of it. Oh, like a trash bag. Hopped on a random taxi, going for the apartment I signed. Wow, like that. He actually got there. And this is actually something, well, I don't know what the laws are in, presumably in his country of origin, but, this could be grounds for, emancipation, because I'm assuming he's 17 or something like that. And it's just like, I'm close enough to being 18. My parents don't have, my best interests at heart. I'm not putting up with them anymore. I've made my own risk assessment, and they have not convinced me otherwise, and they're not willing to sort of listen at all. So I think that would be kind of potentially a fair thing to do. I just don't know if it would necessarily be legal. I can imagine if this is actually in China, for example, then I think that they would be like, well, your parents don't want you to be gay and you want to be gay, and you think that you can just say no to that and that you've actually come to a good conclusion on this. No, you're going to the camp. Like I'd imagine that's what the Chinese government would say, because they love sending people to camps. Hi, Weston AMC. Sorry, maybe I'm bad at reading. Hello. And never look back. I'm sorry, but we can't live together anymore. And he's left his keys there. It has been roughly 10 years now, but the memory of that night is still fresh in my mind. Don't worry, I had therapy. I'm okay. I'm doing okay now. I've got a stable job. People know I'm gay, and I haven't had to hide ever since. Hell, our country just legalized gay marriage too, and the sole reason that I made this comic is to thank you all. You may not feel it, but just you being you may have saved someone. Please have pride. Please have pride in loving who you always want to love. Because aside from what has all happened to me, I have never been happier. I think I certainly understand that perspective. Like that's for certain. I understand where he's coming from, given all of that. And I think, like, perhaps when I had first read this initially, that I was a little more callous in my sort of gut knee-jerk reaction. I understand where he's coming from with that. But when people... this is due to the concept that empathy does not make good policy. When you make your policy out of empathy, you are thinking too much in the shoes of whatever person you're feeling the worst for, and so you will prioritize the person you're feeling bad for over the rights of the people, over the rights of literally everybody else. That's the reason why we can't just look at these sort of special groups, these protected classes, and say, because these protected classes exist and because they feel bad and because I feel bad for them, then we need to force everybody else into sort of this subjugation towards the agenda. Now, obviously, that's not what this is saying, but this is saying, please have pride. Please have pride in loving who you always want to love. Like when you frame it in this sort of a situation, it makes it so that people who say, well, I don't think that you should necessarily be prideful in something, that doesn't really, like, there's nothing, like there are some people who have said that you being gay, or, you know, Alphabet Mafia makes you exactly what, or that it defines you, and it defines everything about you just in the negative. And so in reaction, you may have ended up turning towards people who say the exact opposite, that it does define everything about you, but it defines you in the positive because it's a good. And it's just like, it's neither good nor bad, it just exists. That's the conclusion there, where it's just like, well, I don't think you should be prideful in it, and I don't think that you should be shameful of it. I think you should be in the middle of just understanding that it is, and, you know, just because it is doesn't actually mean that there is a necessity for you to, you know, I mean, the fact that it is means that there's a risk assessment to be made, where you're just like, okay, what are the risks of, you know, intending or continuing to be gay, and is that worth it to me? Well, you know, what do I serve to gain from it? Serve? What do I stand to gain from it, and what do I stand to lose from it? Both now and in eternity, if you believe in that. And, you know, you make a decision based off of what you believe, and what you believe is also based off of a risk assessment as well. So it's like, you just make that risk assessment. I think people, objectively speaking, people do make those risk assessments, but I don't think they're doing it with an objective sense in mind when they take it from this sort of, what's the word? This, religious angle, where there's actually no view of facts in and of themselves. There's only a view of feelings, and the way that I feel about this therefore requires me to behave in etc. of a way. I don't think that's a good way to sort of go about it, because obviously, you know, empathy in the place of policy, because when with this sort of attitude that has, please have pride, like that sort of an attitude makes people who are like, yeah, I have pride, look to people like me who are just like, I don't think this is something that you should be prideful or ashamed of. I think it's just something that you can choose to do or not to do depending on what your risk assessment is, and it doesn't define you one way or the other. And like, they're gonna get really pissed at me for not being pro, and it's just like, well, now, like, and this is just somebody who's just kind of in the middle of it, who's just like, it's just not that big of a deal. But then somebody who's on the opposite end of like, it's a really big deal and it's bad, is going to be clashing with the people who's like, it's a really big deal and it's good. And then now I'm just stuck in the middle being like, can we just like stop? Can we shut up about this? Because it really doesn't actually matter that much. Like it's just a little bit tiring in the end. And I really don't like, especially being as anti-collectivist as I am, I really don't like sort of what it bodes for people to be having these types of what's the word? These types of religious conversations. Like it's just not healthy. With just how like pious it is. Like I just don't see any real purpose of it. It's not productive. It's clearly just not productive, and I don't need, like, I don't think we need that in our lives, our discourse. It's just not so good. And I think it would be much better for people to just be able to move on and be calmer about it. It's funny, like, the first response here is conversion therapy sounds horrible. It's like, well, he didn't go to conversion therapy. like did you even like look at the entire situation? He didn't even go to conversion therapy. He actually has no idea what conversion therapy is like, or the particular version of conversion therapy that he was going to go to, that program. He didn't have a single clue what that was actually going to be like, because he didn't go because he didn't want to be told. And goodness sake, the stuttering. I don't think that he doesn't have the right. It's like, yeah, absolutely has the right to say, like, yeah, I don't feel like doing that. I don't want to. Like, it makes sense, but may not be 100% queer. What does that mean? Does that mean you're bi? Does that mean, like, I don't know what that means. That's an interesting. May not be 100% queer. It's like, is this like just trying to play the sort of oppression Olympics where we're playing like these games of the victimology? Like, it's like, well, listen guys, I'm a little bit gay. Like I may have touched a dick once. That might be a female, but like it's like, why does it matter? Like, you don't need to be a part of the in group. This is exactly the trouble with the collectivist underpinings, I guess, is that the word, of pride, because it just ends up being tribal warfare once again, with the anthropological roots here. Like, you're just going to devolve into this, you're not part of my in group and you're an out group, and that means you're bad because you're not like me. Like, we can't coexist if we see each other as all of these like disparate groups with disparate ideas and experiences and all of this, and that the conclusion therefore is that people who aren't in our individual groups are bad. Like, we have to be saying, well, yeah, there's individual groups and there's factions and there's small amounts, but we're all under the same umbrella of American, and that means that we are free, and that's what's important. That's what's most important, is that we're free. I think there's a meme for this. I'm not going to try and dig it up because it might take a little too long. It's just like, it's America, tell your gay neighbors Merry Christmas, and grill on the 4th of July and like go to church on Sundays and just do all of that. Just do everything that you want to do. And, you know, you can't stand in the way of anybody else. And people who behave differently, it's perfectly fine that they do that, and because it doesn't actually affect you. It's just what's going on next door, you know? It's like, that's what we should be looking at is, you know, my peers, you know, these are just brothers and sisters. Like that was part of the importance. That's what the social fabric was just like, you know, they just think a little bit differently. They just have different risk assessments. They come to a different conclusion than I do, and that's perfectly okay because it doesn't affect me that they think that way. But what happens when you try to affect other people that they think that way? What happens when the way that one person thinks actually kind of destroys or is diametrically opposed to the way that another person thinks, in the sense that they actually can't coexist together? Well, you end up with some trouble here. You end up in court, or one of you ends up dead. You know, the conflict might actually escalate when you say, you must praise me for my decisions personally. It's like, I am never going to be as egotistical as to demand of the entire world everybody's respect. Respect is earned. I'm not going to say that you should actually respect any of my behavior, whether or not I think it is praiseworthy. I'm not going to make demands of people because they think differently, and they have free agency. They have the right to think differently. Like, I can absolutely say that they're wrong, but I can't demand for them to praise me for being different. Like, I don't know. Yeah, a lot of these are pretty anodyne statements. Like, it's just nothing really an issue. Yeah, thank you for holding pride in your heart. It's just like, why are you praising me for that? Like, this is just something that I did because of course I did that. It's just the way that I thought was best to do, and I did it for me. I didn't do it for anybody else. I did it for me. But I have a feeling that given that the way that that final sort of message was framed is that it's sort of the way that it's like, well, it's actually, I'm not doing it just for me. I'm doing it for everybody else who is like me. And it's like, I don't really like that. I don't like the idea that we're going to be finding this sort of collective conscience because other people also like Dick. It's just like, hey, I like Dick. I don't want to become a part of the Dick liking hive mind. I just want to be me. Like, I don't get it. Depicting people as dogs, I am not taking this seriously. Oh, like, alrighty then. See, that's kind of just my reaction. That's like, okay, like, I guess if you don't want to like put up with the hypothetical situation, given like the character designs of the characters in the story, then like, okay, alrighty, I guess this story is not for you then. Righty then. That's also kind of how I would respond to people who like, your alphabet, that's disgusting, don't come near me. It's just like, oh, alrighty then, I guess you think that way, but has your family ever tried to reconnect with you? Nope. They chose to think that I'm away from home since work. That's interesting. I feel bad for the parents, not because they're not responsible for what happened. Like, they clearly are responsible, but I feel bad for them because they're probably going to be on the deathbed being like, man, wish I told my kid that I love them because maybe they'd be here right now. Like, that sucks. Nothing is more painful than a parent refusing to accept their child. Well, accept what about them? Because, you know, if a child at like age 4 is saying, well, I'm just like, I'm a friggin' chicken, I'm a dinosaur, I'm a like whatever it is, it's just like, and you need to accept me. It's just like, no, like that there's objective reality, and I need to actually, you know, explain a thing or two to you about objective reality, where there's a difference between playing and pretending and actually trying to be that. And if you live a lie, you're going to be miserable, but if you live the truth, then you're actually going to find joy. Like, it's a difference between that and just like, you know, What is refusing to accept that child? Because this stipulates, this effectively says that you know, you have to, like, because I don't know, it depends on the definition of accept, because does accept mean that it's just like, okay, I have to accept the fact that you're gay? So like, well, yeah, like clearly you do have to accept, okay, this is the way that my child has gone. This is the case. This is what we're dealing with. Like clearly you do have to accept that. But sort of refusing to accept in the sense like, does it mean acceptance in the sense of like acceptance, like praise, like, oh yeah, I'm really happy with the fact that this is what's going on? Because I don't think that a parent should have to do that. And I don't think it's necessarily heartbreaking that a parent might not react 100% supportively of that type of a risk assessment coming from their children. But that doesn't mean, because this assumes that it is inherently not loving of a parent to say, well, actually, that's not sort of the best case scenario that for you, like that's sort of the way that I would consider that, where it's like, well, wait a minute, this might not actually be the best thing for you. Now, a parent should never be telling their kid like that they are ashamed of them or that they don't love them anymore. And I think it's rhetorically irresponsible of the parent to say anything like, it's going to be hard for me to figure out how to love you, because it's like, no, it shouldn't be hard, because it should be kind of implicit. It's like you like all of the effort that you put into that person, it shouldn't feel like a betrayal that they are coming to this conclusion. Like it's not a betrayal of you, it's a reflection of what your parenting has done to them, that they have ended up in whatever predicament they are in. You know, what you have to assess is whether or not that is a good or bad thing for them, and whether or not that is the future that I mean, generally the future that you want for your children is the future that is best for them. I trust parents to make that decision for their children more than I trust like really anybody else, because nobody else knows those children other than like the actual parents of the child. Like it's kind of their responsibility. Generally, they know better than anybody else how to parent their child and what those needs are. But you know, obviously there are limits to that, because there are some times where parents will do whatever they feel like doing in a way that is it's just cathartic or whatever, rather than actually being responsible with it. You know, they can become abusive because it just feels better to hit their kid or to whatever their kid, because they get something out of it in an emotional sense or what have you. But refusing to accept their child, it's like, I can accept that you feel this way as fact. I accept that as fact, and I can understand, and I can try to understand by having a discussion with you about why you feel this way. But that doesn't mean that I need to praise it. Like, why does that mean that I need to praise it, or that I need to inherently celebrate it in any type of a way? Like, you know, obviously I think parents kind of do it to themselves when they it's like, is it any wonder that people are going out like being like, oh, we've really, it's like, you know, if parents actually respond in a really negative fashion as these parents did, then it's like, obviously I don't really blame the kid for ending up the way that they ended up. I went back one day after a whole year to see if they have changed. Mom cried, but she said, please come back, we forgive you. And I'm like, you're not sorry? Dad pretended that I was away for work, and he went out for a late night meeting after seeing my face, never went back again. Wow, that is real difficult. Yeah, that is crazy that it's still about them. It's just like, wait, so you aren't sorry at all? It's like, we forgive you. It's just like, well, why are you assuming that I need to be forgiven? Like, it would be much better if it says, we love you and we want you to forgive us like, or we forgive you and we want forgiveness in return. We would really appreciate if we could get forgiveness in return. Like that would obviously be far more beneficial. But I mean, you know, if your mother is crying about this, clearly she does care, but it's entirely possible that she just didn't know how to show it in a productive way. But I don't think that would be enough for some of these people, given their like, if they said, listen, we don't think it's a good idea for reason, etc., for you to be gay. You're an adult now. It's completely up to you. And I think a lot of what we did contributed to that. And we are sorry for what we did to contribute to that. And we want you to know that we still love you, no matter what you do, where you go, who you are. We would prefer if you would take into consideration our ideas on this, but we can't decide for you. We just want to have you around in whatever capacity, and we don't want this to be a wedge between us, because you matter more to us than the convenience of having our feelings spared, because this is more, you are more important than how we feel. Like, I think that would be an effective way to bridge that gap again. But it's like, they still don't think it's about them. They still fail to see how they actually caused this. And it's like, of course he's not going to think that it's a bad thing as they do, because he's like, no, I don't trust my parents. I've rejected their messaging and their thoughts about that. Right. Thank you for being vulnerable. My dad is a survivor of conversion therapy and lives as a proud gay man. Survivor of conversion therapy. Well, like, what was the actual treatment? Because if the treatment was like, you know, like, was it abusive or was it not? This is exactly the issue that I was bringing up sort of at the beginning. Was it abusive or was it not? Because if it wasn't abusive, then what are you complaining about? If it just made you uncomfortable, then tough, because life is uncomfortable. Nothing about life is gonna be like a completely cushy experience, and if it is, then reality is gonna slam in eventually, right? Like, it's just it's just an interesting, like, survivor of conversion therapy. Like, were they going to kill you otherwise? Were they just going to, like, torture you until you died if the gay didn't leave your body? Because, like, that sounds like pseudoscientific. That sounds like torture. That sounds like a crime. That sounds pretty awful and terrible. Like, and I totally understand that you would say that that's awful and terrible. But was it just them sitting down with them? Like, obviously that you're going to suffer some consequences as parents if you sit down with them and, like, yell at them and make it their fault and make it all about you and how you are victimized by their temptation. Like, obviously they're going to reject you and say, okay, this person doesn't actually have my best interests at heart. I'm going to actually take care of myself now. Like, obviously that is going to happen, but, like, if you're saying that you survived that situation, it's like, get a grip. Like, you're not going to die. Like, that's a little bit delusional. But I do wonder if it's like, my dad's a survivor of conversion therapy. Is that like, do you have two dads, or is that like your dad was with a woman and then the woman had you, but then the dad was like actually like men now? Like, I don't know. Like I understand, like, obviously, like, plenty of situations where you can be a dad and also be homosexual, but it is interesting when it crops up, or it's like, how that happened. Because most of the time when it's like, oh yeah, my dad is my dad because my dad had sex with a woman and created me. Like, my dad and my mom did the deed, and then I came of that. It's just like, yeah, like, I don't have to really think about that. But when you swap out that, it's like, right. Like, I don't want to be obtuse, but, like, yeah. Anyhow, in conclusion, I have nothing else to say. Like that's basically just the long and short of it. United we stand, divided we fall. If we are going to look at each other in terms of these collectives, all of this crap, it's not going to turn out very well for us. And we have to be able to trust that other people believe what they believe in earnest, and that they got to that conclusion because that's what they thought was the best thing for them. Like we have to be able to grant that credibility to people. Otherwise, it's going to be really difficult for everybody to coexist. And I don't really want to live in the world, in the America where people can't be tolerant of differences of not exactly thought, because I don't know. We shouldn't. Some thoughts should not be tolerated, frankly. But I don't want to live in the America that can't tolerate people who just come to a different conclusion in a way that doesn't actually affect them in any significant way. Because you're going to have to deal with people who disagree. You're going to have to deal with some of these people. And some of these people are going to be family. Some of these people are going to be difficult to continue to coexist with because it's hard sometimes. But I don't think we should be so up in arms about it all the time. Like, it really just does not matter all that much. It certainly doesn't matter enough to be ruining our relationships with each other, or in the sense of close family, and in the broader sense of a society. We shouldn't ruin our society, and we shouldn't become uncivilized because the people have a different risk assessment about this thing. It's just never going to be good if we behave in that way. It is about time that I go to sleep, though, or get off. I should have just split it where I said I was going to split it. It's too late. I shouldn't have continued blabbering on like this, but at least I got it out the way, that I finished the entire thing, and I don't have to end up looking into it at a later time and finishing it later. So thanks to the people who gave me traffic, I suppose. The one individual, but again, sorry that people have to deal with that. But yep, this is the thing. You just gotta be able to keep on keeping on, and people are gonna be jerks sometimes, and sometimes just because they're jerks and not because they're out to get you. Though I don't know, sometimes people are out to get you. Yeah, again, difference between harassment and whatever. You get the idea. It's Jova. Goodbye.